Welcome to Unmuted Podcast, your midlife roundtable, where we have honest conversations, real stories, and expert insights on the wild, wonderful ride of midlife. We're here to break the silence and remind you you're never alone. And welcome back to Unmuted, the midlife roundtable, where we talk about all the things you were taught you were supposed to whisper about. We're not doing that anymore. And here we are today with so many fun, amazing conversations that we can have. And we have two special guests that we need to introduce today. The first one being our new co-host, Kara. Welcome so much to Kara. Kara is a midlife woman, a mother of two, part-time teacher, and accidental menopause advocate, she calls herself. She makes these amazing videos like the Menopause Hotline. I'm sure you've seen them. I love them, by the way, Kara. They're amazing.
Thank
And
you.
in hopes of making other people smile and women smile and know that they're not alone. She likes to remind women that whatever it looks like, we're doing it. So, Kara, welcome so much to Unmuted. We're so happy to have you as a new co-host.
Thank you so much and good morning. And I will try not to mess this up for y'all. Gosh.
It's going to be such a laugh. You'll see. This is just such an easy group of women to hang out with and to have all these conversations with. So welcome. I'm so excited. So today on Unmuted, we have Andrea Donsky. Honestly, I'm going to let you, Andrea, introduce yourself, but a 7 times published menopause researcher and entrepreneur with 26 years experience in health and wellness. We are so grateful to have you here to talk about so many amazing projects that you have going on. Why don't you give us a little intro of yourself and tell us what you'd like to talk about today?
Sure. Well, first of all, so great to be here. So I love the womanhood, everybody coming together to have a conversation about perimenopause and menopause. And each and every one of you are amazing. So thank you for having me. Me and my story. Well, I've been in health and wellness for 26 years, and I've always been passionate about educating people about what they're eating, their body, what they're putting on in their body, on their body. And when I got my first hot flash, I kind of took a little bit of a different direction because I thought I knew a lot about what we do or what I'm eating and how my body functions. But when I got that hot flash, I thought, oh my gosh, I know nothing about menopause. I didn't even know the word perimenopause existed. And I thought, if I don't know, I'm guessing a lot of other people don't know too, considering it was my job to help explain it. So I thought, all right, well, I need to start going down the rabbit hole of what this phase of life is. What does it mean? What are the stigmas that are associated with it? And that's what kind of took me to creating Morphist. And now it's almost 10 years ago, funny enough, but it's been a long time.
Hey, tell us more about Morphist, because this is an online community of people who can come together. So give us a little bit more information on that and how people can join in.
Sure. So I actually started Morphist with Randy. So I've had the same female business partner for 26 years. Like,
Nice.
isn't that amazing? So we've been partners. Morphist is our third company. And when we started experiencing symptoms, we thought, well, we should probably create a business that can help to educate women about what they're going through, but also provide solutions. And at the same time, I thought, I think I'm going to start a TikTok community. I knew nothing about TikTok. I literally went and I had coaching sessions with these amazing coaches. And I thought, well, I'm going to start a TikTok community because I just wanted to talk about perimenopause and menopause. My other social media handles were really about, wellness and all of that, or natural and organic. And I thought I'm going to just focus on perimenopause and menopause on TikTok. And it took off. It's incredible. I always say I have like the most incredible community of women there who want to understand what it's like to be in this phase of life, to learn about it. But also, I like Kara, like you, I bring in a little bit of humor. I always laugh. I'm like, I have no shame. I make myself like with my hot flashes, and I kind of do what I kind of tried to make myself relatable, because at the end of the day, I am went through exactly what the women in our community are going through. And my whole thing was, I want to educate them so they can understand how to take control of their health and symptoms and feel better, because we could thrive in this phase of life. But unfortunately, nowadays, which is great, when I was going through it, we didn't really hear a lot about it. People weren't talking about it as much. My doctor never brought it up to me. My mom didn't really talk to me about it. I never learned about it in school, right? So I kind of had to learn it all myself, which is why I bring that to our community so that they don't have to go through what I went through. And that's why we launched Morphist.
so many women saying the same thing, I had to go through it alone. I had to go down the rabbit hole. I had to. And it is really interesting that that wasn't very long ago. We're talking 5, 10 years ago that
Right.
all of these women had to do this all on their own. And the conversations are just blowing up around this midlife, stage. Some people would call it crisis. I call it a hilarious time of life sometimes when like you just don't know what's going on and you're having these conversations. Now all of a sudden there's like 20 women in a room who maybe you didn't know a minute ago, and you start talking about a hot flash and everybody's like, I know, girl, like holy cow. And just the bonding that can happen if one person just opens their mouth and says something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And I think that's the nice thing about it is that I always say as Gen Xers, we're not going into this phase of life lightly. We are screaming it from the rooftop. Many of us are. And look at all of us, 6 of us right here who are screaming it from the rooftop because, I really, as a mom, I have 3 kids and 2 of them are daughters. And I don't want my daughters and even my son, for whoever he ends up marrying, I don't want them to have to wonder or be surprised or kind of know nothing about this phase of life. So for me, it was so important for the younger, obviously for our generation, but also for the generations that are coming after us, because it's like, it's done. Gen Xers, we are stopping the stigma. We are stopping the lack of information. We are stopping the surprise of coming into this phase of life so that they know and understand that this phase of life there are so many great things about this phase of life. We're coming into our own. We're empowering ourselves. We're learning how to set boundaries. We're learning how to say no. Like we always say, like perimenopause and menopause is this incredible time in our lives where we're coming into our own for a lot of us. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of great things to look forward to, right?
Yeah, Andrea, I'm really glad that you went in that direction because so much of what we hear in the menopause space right now is really scary, right? There's a lot of fear-based information that is out there. And none of us want to dismiss the challenges that come with this time. It is a challenging time, but it's also so important to acknowledge that it also is this really incredible time where we get to claim our narrative in ways that maybe we never have before. Where before we were always living up to somebody else's expectation, and now it's our time to say, oh no, listen, I'm going to write my own story now.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally
And not
agree.
only for us in the moment, but now we get to teach, like you were just saying, Andrea, like I've got a daughter as well, and her friends are around. They're young, they're 16-ish. So like they're really just kind of coming up into it. And my oldest is 21 and he's got these girls hanging around, like they're girl group friends and all of this stuff. And we're having these conversations and I'm listening to the girls talk about, I don't know, just general thing, dating and school and teachers and, anything at all. And me sitting there just interjecting, being like, don't you let anybody say anything to you. You get to say, where maybe they don't have to wait until perimenopause and menopause. And maybe they can gather a little bit of that agency listening to us have these conversations and know that it doesn't have to just be this hormonal shift. You can actually hold on to that autonomy all on your own at any age, and you don't need permission to have it. Having this generation of people that have children around them or young adults around them to
Yeah.
share with them. You're right that you don't have to wait. We get to
Exactly
stand
what
up
I'm
and be
teaching
really,
my
really loud
girls
about it.
too.
But
My girls
what?
too. I have 2 girls too, and same thing, they're 18, 16, and it's like I'm giving them my advice that I'm giving myself now to them now at their age. I think we're gonna see a different generation of girls growing up who had us as mothers.
100%. My 8-year-old knows more about menopause than like she probably should. But my 16-year-old son, because his rugby team and football team follow me, they're learning more than
It's
from the
funny. Yeah.
humor side of it. But for me, it's felt like a total rebirth. Like it was horrible and painful, and I had a very hard time with severe symptoms till we figured it out. And now that I feel like I'm sort of on the other side and my symptoms are sort of in check. And now I just feel, yeah, this like confidence and this like excitement and this like just it's like a rebirth, like on the other side. And I'm
I'm so excited. And I'm excited for my kids to see that. Like, as we get older, we're not sort of dimming. I'm like, I'm just going to get brighter and brighter.
That's awesome. And, Kara, I'm in a similar boat with, having an online community and my son who's 22. So when he was in university, in first year university, all the girls on his floor started following me and they were like, oh my God, I love your mother's content. And he was mortified initially when I went on TikTok, mortified. And then once he started hearing how his friends thought it was kind of funny or cool that they were following me, he started to turn and be like, okay, maybe she's not as like uncool as I thought she was. Right. And then he started becoming proud until I started posting content about vaginal dryness. And that's when he lost it.
That's fair.
My son said the same thing. Well, my son is 21 and I've been doing this work for 10 years. So he was, a young boy when I started doing it. And, everybody knows that if you come into mom's office, you may or may not see something like the big vagina and vulvas everywhere. And you might see these things if you come into my office. So if you don't want to see it, then don't come in. But yeah, as he grew up, it was the same thing. He was like, ew, that's so weird. And then it was kind of cool. And now it's like, like I said, those girls are coming over being like, is your mom home? Can we talk to her? And he's like, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Isn't that I just want to share something. I think it's really important. We talk about, especially me, because I'm the oldest on here, is that we've struggled, right? The Gen X have struggled through menopause. And I think the struggle is because menopause was ignored, right? It was ignored for so long. That's why we struggled. So for those generations coming up, the struggle will not be there. Yes, they're going to have some, but not to the degree that we have gone through it, right? And I think the education and what the health community and everybody is doing to advocate for HRT, all these different things to really help women so that we don't go through what we've gone through, right? It's really important because I think it's something we don't want to talk about, and that is sex. We don't want to talk about libido. We don't want to talk about these things because it's so uncomfortable. I know, Andrea, you just did a research paper that you had released in December of 2025.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to talk about that because I really want to bring this uncomfortable conversation in here.
Well, I think first, before you go forward, we have to remember we weren't just like, menopause wasn't just ignored. Menopause, we were actually scared out of it, right? The WHI scared women, scared practitioners. And then when we were scared of our own hormones, well, then menopause became 10 times, 100 times more scary, right? So not only were we suffering that a whole generation of women were suffering in silence, a whole generation of women did it scared, right? So we have to remember that piece too. And even now that we are having more conversations about HRT and the safety of HRT and all of that, we still have not overcome a lot of that fear. And that's a lot of things. That's a big part of what I still see quite a bit in conversations that I have with women. I just did a podcast on this yesterday, but also like when I do like coaching and workshops, this is still like a very big thing that's at the forefront. So it's not just like menopause was just ignored, it was also feared as well.
Yeah.
Going to roll into our sex life as well. So, Andrea, why don't you let us know about this paper? We're really excited to talk about that.
Yeah, so I teamed up with Dr. James Simon. He's a medical doctor, and he was actually the past president of the Menopause Society in the US. And he co-authored the paper with me, as did Marcella Hill from Wake Her Up. And what we found is that 90% of women see a decrease in libido or have no libido as we go into this phase of life, and 66% of women have a harder time reaching orgasm. So we know that it's a major issue for so many of us, and we wanted to have it published because for us, having it in a publication like the journal Menopause was important to us because we wanted to see, first of all, women are experiencing it. So we're validating women's experiences. And then we also wanted to understand, like, what are they being told? So when they go to their doctor, are they speaking to somebody? Are they speaking to their doctor? Are they speaking to their husbands, friends, colleagues? Who are they speaking to? And we found out that women are primarily speaking to their doctor about it and their partners. So those are the two most common. And the number one thing that women were told, this is so it won't surprise any of you because this is what you do. But the number one thing, actually take a guess. What do you think the number one thing is women were told when they shared how they were feeling about their sex life?
Go have a glass of wine and listen up.
It was normal.
Okay. Lisa?
They're depressed, take an antidepressant.
Lisa?
Mine was with Serena. Yeah, like have a glass of wine and just relax a little bit.
So they were all on there, but the number one thing was use lubrication.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, that was the number one thing. And then there were things like they were met with compassion, not given advice, which is fair enough. But then things like do it anyways because it's your wifely duty. That was a big
It's a
one.
big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That shows up in my office all the
I had a
time.
client that was told by their doctor, well, we don't make female Viagra.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
What is it, the 1940s? What?
Yeah, pretty crazy. Anyways, but it's, it was definitely eye-opening. It was very interesting to hear, but I think you're right. I'll throw this back to you, I guess, Serena. Do you think it's a generational thing that we don't speak like baby boomers didn't, Gen Xers didn't? Like, do you think it's because of who we were raised by? Like, talk a little bit about that. I find that fascinating.
It's it is and it isn't. I think it's a little bit of that and a little bit of what Amanda said, because prior to, the 80s and, the 90s when we got scared out of this, like, oh my God, HRT is going to cause cancer and everybody needs to stay off of it. Maybe we weren't having those massive conversations about it, no, but there was more female community. So, Nan and your aunties and your grandmas, they might not have been being really loud about it, and you might not have heard a whole lot about it, but they were having these little and I'm talking 2 generations ago. They were having the conversations. We didn't have the information that we have now, of course not. We didn't have the medical,
Yeah.
side of it that we have now, of course not. But women weren't ignored by women. They were just, we weren't really even talking about being ignored by the medical community. We were just kind of, we need community because we know everybody's going to go through this. And everyone just sort of meandered through the best that they could, right? But now that we're having these conversations, the medical world is getting into it a little bit more, which is great. We can, help these symptoms along so much better than we could. Plus, in the generation that we're in right now, we have so much more, quote, to do. That's a little dicey to say, but I think you know what I mean is that, 2 generations ago, we were very much stay-at-home housewife doing the thing. But now we have these women who are managing careers in their 50s and young families because people are having babies a lot, later in life, and managing their own expectations of themselves and managing their relationships. So it's just compounded in the generations that have come after that, is just my opinion on that. In my office, what I see a lot are older, I say older than me, in their 60s, 65, saying, you know, is it physical? Is it responsive desire? We work through a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to that word libido because it is very much environmental, but they want to have sex. They're like, I really want it. Like, the kids are out of the house and I've retired and I've got this thing and I've got this joy for life and part of me, but now my body's not working. What the heck? So then we've got to have those conversations and bring in the doctors and bring in, the menopause specialists.
I knew a little bit about low libido, um, but not when I was in it. Sort of like after the fact, I kind of went, okay, that's why. Like there's nothing wrong between me and my husband. Like there's nothing, and that's a huge piece how it impacts your relationship, and not knowing why. Like, oh my God, why do I never feel like it? And that went on for like quite some time. And then also the other piece that I was like, why is no one talking about? Like, well, for me, how painful,
Yeah.
like
Vaginal
how
dryness.
painful it can be. And I was like, and then when you find out your, I don't know, vaginal walls,
Part
like
of that,
tissue
Kara, and
paper,
I've just got to
maybe it makes sense.
say, we were told from ladies, you probably heard this too. How many of us were told that painful sex was normal from elementary school? Going through the
Right.
sex ed, you might bleed when you first do it. It might hurt when you first do it. These are things that are put in the back of our head subconsciously through our whole lives. And we put up with pain and we put up with these uncomfortable situations because we were told they should be normal. And if we had any sort of voice about that, or if we wanted to talk about that, then we were high maintenance. There was something wrong with us. We were expecting the world. And I think that's ridiculous as well. So now we brought that, right? We brought that narrative into our menopause, and women are coming and saying, it is really painful, but I just pushed through. And I go, well, if you push through, then you're going to have this negative feedback. Of course, you don't want to do something that hurts you. And onto your stats, Andrea, just for a second, I wrote it down when you said it because I thought it was amazing that you came up with 66% of women report having decreased orgasms Can we just add to that there's only 66% of women in general that report having regular orgasms in their peak years? Now add 66% decline on top of that. And don't come to me and ask me why women, quote, don't want to have sex. Women want sex. We just don't want crappy sex, you know? Exactly.
Right, exactly.
So, what's interesting to Kara's point is we have another published research on, it's called the men's perspective of menopause. So that was also published in December 2025. And the number one thing, so we wanted to ask men, what have they noticed, like the biggest change in their wife? And the number one thing was change in sex drive from the men's perspective. So we thought that was super interesting, kind of when you correlate it with our libido survey. So everything kind of ties in together. But to what you were saying, Kara, right? It's like the men, our partners are noticing it. And that is is that the most important thing for them? That's kind of what came out right in the survey. So to me, it's all fascinating.
I was gonna say, like, told my husband, it's like a razor blade for me. And then he was like, oh my God. So, he was kind of like realized instead of just saying, oh, it hurts, it's like a razor blade. And then he was like, oh shit.
And Deborah, that's why what you do is so important.
And that's why we did what we did, right? I mean, because the lubricants out there, when we created Pleasure Pods, which was 5 years ago when we started this, it was like they don't help the vaginal walls in any regards because our walls are so different and nothing has been created that way. And so that's why we created Pleasure Pods to be able to help women that are going through that type of thing. And it's not just women in perimenopause or menopause, it's also women that are postpartum, right? They need something that's all natural that's going to help nourish and hydrate. But I want to come back to, we talked about back in the day. I was born in 62 and my mother didn't talk to me about sex. And her mother didn't talk to her about sex. And the only thing that was looked at when it came to sex and intercourse and that was to have a baby. Okay. That was pretty well what sex was about. And it was about satisfying the men, not the women, right? I think what I've learned and listened to through the years that I've been more involved with sexual wellness and so forth is that, and just for myself, I didn't have an orgasm until I was 53 years old.
Wow.
So, and because if you played with yourself, you were dirty. So I didn't know my body. I didn't know I had a clitoris that could do what a clitoris could do. And to discover all those things in the later years, I'm just grateful to see, not that I agree with it 100%, is porn has really helped a lot of people discover their bodies. There's a lot of porn that I don't agree with, okay? But there is Cynthia Gallup, what her porn site is, because it's
Make
very
love, not porn.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
And it's
Cindy.
really great because it really shows, that you can have sensual and not be to the degree that some of the porn is out there in the industry. I just think for women to discover their own bodies, and I can just tell you for myself, and I want to share this because I don't want people to be ashamed and afraid to share this, is having your clitoris just played with. You can have the best orgasms ever. You don't have to have anybody inserting their penis or anything inside of your vagina to have a phenomenal orgasm, right?
I say to people all the time, Deb, I go, you know what? There's like a really large part of our population that only have clit to clit play and only have that and don't have any sort of insertion that's necessary with their bodies. And they statistically are having more orgasms than the heterosexual women out there. So, your clitoris is your main sex organ. And it's really important that we know those body parts. And, that's part of why we talk about what we talk about and do.
One of the things I was thinking about, Kara, when you were talking about pain, and Deb, and talking about the shame that we've held in our bodies for all this time, is not only the physical pain, but emotional pain that we hold about sex and sexuality. And so both Serena and Andrea, I'm curious around, because in my own personal experience and in my practice, sexual trauma that hadn't shown itself throughout my life is coming to the surface now. And I have heard that from other folks that I have worked with as well. And so I'm wondering if that shows in the research. And Serena, you have a greater volume of practice. So I'm wondering where that's landing, where women are starting to remember, recognize the sexual trauma that's happened to them in the past and how that's playing out for them in their world now.
Yeah, so it is coming up. And the idea is what I'm noticing is, and I made a note about this a little bit earlier with the sex drive thing. When our hormones are dropping a little bit, we always talk about how our estrogen is dropping. That's our give a hoot hormone, right? It gives us, it puts that veil over our eyes of a lot of things. And when that drops, it's also bringing back the veil on all of the things that might have happened to us, all of the things that we may or may not have said yes or no to appropriately, all of the moments that we felt like we had to do something out of duty or, because of fear. First of all, there's a lot of space that things happen, just a physical fear. I'm going to let this happen so that something worse doesn't happen to me. Those kind of things. So we're having these conversations with women about what it feels like now for all of this to be bubbling up to the surface. And then as well, having this huge conversation about, oh, well, you should be touching your body. But then also you need to be going to your medical practitioners. And then also, you know, everything is coming up at once. And I think that's where things feel a little overwhelming. Talk about the overwhelm of menopause in general and perimenopause in general, and then add that in. So, there's not one fix to something like that bubbling up in our bodies. And it really does take having a conversation with some sort of professional that you trust to have, a plan on how you want that to exist, right? Do we want to go into it with your therapist? Do you want to come to your sex coach and learn how to appropriately touch your body? Do we want to do some breath work? Do we want to we always talk about this, it's almost like this esoteric idea of getting into our spirituality and releasing shame and releasing all this stuff. But that it originates in the body. We can't bypass your physical body when it comes to even talking about the shame that lands in our bodies. So we have to be able to physically be aware of what's going on, as well as psychologically working through a whole bunch of different, it's something that is coming up for a lot of women. It isn't a one thing fixes everything, but to just know and for you to share that it's coming up with you. And I saw Deb's hand go up when that happened as well. And, I've had these narratives in my head a lot. One of the reasons why my sex drive, I don't want to say my sex drive, it's such a large conversation, but one of the reasons why I pulled back from having sex purposefully was that I was having it for those reasons. I was having it out of duty. I was doing it because I thought I had to. I was, and it was great and it was fine, but there were days that I just didn't want to. And guess what? I just started going, I don't want to. Poo-poo, go on. I don't want to. But that's not looked at as a good woman, right? A good woman puts that aside and does everything for everybody else. So we're not doing that anymore. So if we want to have those conversations, we need to start bringing them up and sharing. We don't have to share our deepest, darkest secrets, but just letting other women know that if you feel it, at least 1, 2, how many of us are here? 6 of us, so at least 50% of us were full well yes, I feel the exact same way, right? Andrea, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, we didn't look at it in the research. We didn't look at trauma in the research. However, my mother is a trauma specialist, and she's been one for over 35 years. And so when I was writing my book, her and I, we talked a lot. We actually had a whole section on trauma in the book, and we ended up removing it. And because that's it's a much bigger conversation for me. And so my mom talks a lot about, and her and I have had so many conversations about this, is that as we go into perimenopause and menopause, and like Serena was saying, that Pollyanna filter goes away. It disappears,
Mhm.
right? So a lot of us are much more vulnerable. A lot of us are much more exposed, and things start resurfacing. Many of us have children who are leaving the house, or many of us we're just recalibrating. We're going through different things, and a lot of things start to come up. So absolutely, speaking to someone who can help you, speaking to a trauma specialist, speaking to someone who, like yourself, Serena, who is an expert at, a sexual health expert, and helping people to reclaim their sexuality. All of that is important, because going through it alone, I think the biggest takeaway is you don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah.
There are people that can help you. There are experts out there that can help you, or speak to a friend, speak to somebody who maybe you can just confide in, because when we go through it alone, and this is from personal experience, you really feel isolated. And I remember for so many years, and I was very hard on myself. I'm very vulnerable about this, and honest, because as someone who was an expert in health and wellness for so many years. And at this point, it's 17 years before I got my first hot flash. When it happened to me, I kind of felt like I was a failure. I was like, wait, did I really know what I was doing? And even if I
Mm.
would ask other people, other women, they'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about, Andrea. So I felt very isolated, very alone, and I blamed myself. And I think that's what I want to avoid for other women is I don't want you to blame yourself. You are not alone. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of us that are feeling the same way. Please find somebody who understands you. If you're asking people and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, go seek professional help. Go seek or speak to someone who does understand you. And nowadays, like I said, this was, many years ago. It's probably 11 years ago when I asked around. Women weren't talking about it the way we do now, even on social media. And this is something like social media has its pros and cons. But one of the pros I find for now this next generation, or even for our generation, is that your algorithm, based on your age, is going to show you things that maybe you would have never been shown before. So it's helpful. So maybe you can find somebody who is understanding or talking about what you're going through, right? So I just want you all to know, and I'm sure you talk about this all the time, is you're not alone. You can find help, and just don't feel like you're the only one, because you're not.
If you don't want to, you don't have to. If you're happy, here's the key. Like, this is such a big conversation that I have with people, and they're like, I need to find my sex drive. I need to find this libido. I need to. And I go, but do you want to? Are you happy? They're like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm happy. Like, I could have an orgasm once a month, or I could like cuddle up with my buddy, once a month and I'm good. I said, well, who's telling you need to find more?
Mm.
Why do you feel like you need to put that stress on top of you when there's so much more stress that's going on? If it's a challenge, yes. But if you're happy, be happy.
I think you guys make some really valid points, and I'm really glad we're sharing this. And, I'll come back to our last episode that we had with Brooke Gordon, who is a breast cancer survivor. As maybe not a lot of you know, but when women go through that, the libido and all that is pretty well gone. And what their trauma's gone through down there is even worse. And she talked about how she just gets together with her partner, and sometimes with clothes on, sometimes without clothes on, and they just cuddle. And they just lay in bed together and they cuddle and they touch skin, or they touch and just hold each other. And she says it's the most caring thing and most loving thing. And she goes, I can't believe how much love it brings to our relationship. And I think both of us were really shocked by that, going through that experience. And I know I've been seeing a couple of things on social media talking about different ways of connecting that is not sexual. And I go like this because that's what I mean by that. You know what I
We're
mean?
just not taught that though. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
generations and generations, we're just not taught that. Like, from the time we start hearing about sex education in school, if they even teach it anymore, I don't even know to what degree they even talk about it, other than like just
There's a lot of permissions that have to
yeah.
happen before
And
they
they
can talk
don't
about
even
it.
really talk about relationships. It's just, hey, here's how your body's changing. But like, they don't talk about like connection. There's no conversations about connection. We still live in this patriarchal society that, women have their duty to, be sexual with their husbands on how many occasions a month or whatever. And like, there's no conversations that happen about what about just the connection piece and being together, and why does it have to be intercourse? And like, those are the fundamental pieces that are missing, in my opinion,
Yeah.
in all
Taking
the
the intercourse,
conversations.
taking that insertion out of the equation is paramount for people who
Yeah.
are going through aging and sex. And we do a lot of that in the office is redefine, because the people who are going through this obviously generationally are at a certain point and they were taught exactly what, like Deb says, like what sex was supposed to be. And that's on both sides of this coin, right? Both sides of the partnership. So they come into the office and we talk about how we redefine sex. We take the goal off the table. We take penetration off the table and say, how much more curious could you get about your partner's body or your own body if we weren't doing that ABCD? If you had to do something completely different, right? We talk a lot about tantric sex and slow sex and what it feels like to touch bodies that are not maybe in full erection, and just how that works with that connection, the oxytocin release, how a good makeout session is
Yeah.
probably one of the most powerful things that you can do with a partner with the sex taken off the table, with the intercourse taken off the table in any sort of penetration, and just how much more anticipation and excitement that you have when you don't have the fear of either rejection or having to reject or the pain or any of those things that are going on in your body. So this pleasure education is what, in my world, what we're veering toward. Even with the younger generation, we're veering toward take the insertion off the table and let's be curious about what other things your body is capable of doing.
So I'm going to get really vulnerable here. I have been struggling in this department for months, just with low libido, not feeling good in my body, like all the things. It's been very sporadic when I'm intimate with my husband, and the emotional piece of that has been actually very distressing for me. We're newlyweds. We've been married almost 5 years. It's a second marriage for the two of us. We really do connect in other ways, but like that piece for us is very important to the two of us. And just trying to work around that has been a little challenging. He's great. He's been understanding for the most part. But for me, emotionally, it's been really hard. And this past weekend was Valentine's Day weekend. And I decided I'm going to get dressed up. We're going out for dinner. I didn't want to have the whole expectation that sex was going to be, the end game, but I wanted it to be, right? That being said, we had a lovely dinner. Like we, had some great connection. And then, you have a makeout session. Honest to God, like, I mean, yes, sex happened, but like the stuff leading up to that, including the makeout stuff before even the other stuff, I actually the next day said to my husband, you know what part I really enjoyed that brought it out for me was this part. And he's like, we didn't even really do it for that long. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, there was something about that just really drove the connection again. And that,
You mean the makeout part of it?
yes, the
Yeah.
makeout part of it that like felt like I was 18 again. Right. So it's just when I can look back and focus on that piece, we didn't even really have to like go any further than that. Like that was great. And actually, it opened up a conversation between my husband and I about maybe doing a little bit more of that in the future instead of focusing on the end game.
Yeah. And Andrea, that might be something that, it might be coming up in your books, might be coming up in your research, but something that maybe we want to tell women and men about is what that anticipation does to your body, right? I mean, like we're medicalizing and we have to, right? We have to use the medical world for our symptoms and for all of those things. But my goodness, emotionally and just psychologically, what anticipation can do for a body and how we get back into that curiosity and just that excitement of what it feels like to even touch your partner.
It's huge. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And because we're such emotional beings for women, so it makes so much sense what you're saying, Amanda. Like, first of all, it sparks memories of, like you were saying, I felt like a teenager again. I felt like I was young again. And then, or like in younger days when you kind of got excited by all of that, right? And that tends to, the longer you're married, or maybe not even the longer you're married, like you're saying, second marriage, things can change. So going back to that, what made us feel, made us fall in love, made us, those feelings of like, oh my God, that connection, all of that is so important. So I love that you're saying that. And sometimes I forget. Like truthfully, you're talking about being vulnerable. Sometimes I forget, with my husband. So like, thank
It's
you.
like, oh, I forgot you kissed like that. Like,
Exactly.
good kisser.
When we first started, that's all we did, right? And now it's like it's so different, right? Kids and like all everything that's going on. So that's, thank you for being vulnerable because it's so true and reminding us.
Yeah, there's nothing better than that moment of, I mean, everybody takes this differently when I say this, so forgive me. But if you, like as a woman, and you have a partner, and let's say your partner is, it doesn't matter actually who your partner is, but that moment that you are begging for them to touch you more, that moment where you are pushing yourself and grinding against their thigh or like pulling them deep into you and you just want to kiss deeper. And it's like, that's the point we want, right? Like that tells me as your sex coach that A, you have a boner because we get boners too, for the record. B, the anticipation has been built. The emotional connection and safety is there because you're asking for it rather than it just happening to you. And that might take a little bit longer. And it might be a conversation you have with your partner where, maybe on Monday we make out and maybe on Wednesday we make out again. And then maybe we don't actually have intercourse for 2 weeks, but we've had, quote, sex a couple of different times if we redefine what sex means in midlife. Not just in midlife, we're working with younger generations on this too, but foreplay being everything that happens after your erotic connection ends until it begins again. So that means the dishes and the kids and the day-to-day logistics and everything that you have to work on. And then sex being any moment that you've been erotically connected. Did you make out in the kitchen for 5 minutes? You had sex today. Did you do a little hand play? You had sex today. Did you do something else? Then you had sex today. So it's, you get to actually redefine what that looks like, and it gives you a positive reinforcement to do it more because you have less stress and less fear about what that's going to feel like for your body.
I have a confession too, if I can. So my husband and I, we went through a major dry spell because my libido, he's on some medication that made his libido. So then we were kind of both, but we knew that we had to kind of connect. We both wanted to. So we went away for a couple of days, and thanks to the pleasure pods, we did use them, and we came back, and it was so funny that a couple of days later was Valentine's Day, and I was out running errands, and it was like 6 p.m. on February 14th. And I went into a lingerie store that I had not been in forever. And I bought 3 outfits.
Yeah, you did. Yay.
And
Yeah,
then
you did. That's so cool.
and then I came back, and my husband made a beautiful dinner. But then I was feeling really gassy. So I laid out. So I laid out all 3 outfits onto the bed, and I said, here they are. Not tonight, but one night. I'm good. And then he was like, yeah, my stomach's not feeling so good.
Anyway, so now you get to see what they look like on the floor. You're welcome.
Kara, thank you for sharing that. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes left. I don't want you to leave until we talk about this. Tell us all about your new book and what it is, when it's coming out, and how we can get our hands on it.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So my book is called Nourishing Menopause, Powerful Nutrition and Lifestyle Strategies to Feel Your Best. And it is for any woman who wants to understand what is happening to her body, who wants to empower herself with education, wants to read research, and also who is suffering with symptoms. It's really for everybody. It's also for healthcare providers, doctors, just men, partners, women's partners, anybody who wants to understand more. And I wanted to write it because, first of all, I keep saying it's like my life's work. It really is. It's my work from the last 26 years as a nutritionist for more than 20, as a menopause educator and 7-time published menopause research at this point. I just wanted to share everything that I've learned so that women, like kind of what we've been talking about the whole time, so women can understand what's happening to their bodies, take charge of their bodies, and implement certain lifestyle, nutrition, supplements, nutrients, exercise. We talk about stress management, sleep, mindset. I wrote an entire chapter with my mother, who is the specialist, a therapist for more than 35 years. And we talk about self-love. We talk about the Pollyanna feeling about what's happening. We talk about relationships. So it covers everything I always say that's in my lane, which is nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements, and mindset. And I wanted to provide, it's one of those books that, and the feedback has been tremendous. Like it launches on May 5th. Thank you. So I'm like so excited. It's kind of surreal. I got my galley this week, and I was like, I've been in front of my computer for 2 years, and sometimes you lose sight of, like, because you're so entrenched in writing, holidays, evenings, like literally 2 years of my life. And then I was like, oh, how cool is that? It's a book. So like I kind of got to hold it and feel it, kind of a little bit to what we're talking about, right? Like I'm feeling it, I'm holding it. It's like this experience that was so amazing for me. So it comes out on May 5th, and it's available anywhere that you buy books. And I'm so excited to share it with the world. And I talk about, so one of the research studies that I was published in was on the number of symptoms that there are. And I think it's important just to mention it really quickly, because for me, validating women is my number one thing. I want to validate women. And we do have research published on doctor visits. And we know that 40% of women are dismissed. So they'll go to their doctor with how they're feeling. And unfortunately, they'll be told it's part of life, deal with it, it's natural. like so many different things. And I just want women to know that there is hope. You don't have to be alone, like I talked about before. And what are some things that we can do to take charge? And the symptoms themselves, we now know there's 103 plus symptoms. So it's old data when we hear 34 to 40 symptoms. And the reason why I wanted to quantify it, we're actually the only other research study that's been published on the quantifiable number of symptoms since the 70s, if you can believe it or not. Right.
Wow.
So when women are going to their doctors and are saying, I have itchy ears, and they're being told, well, it's
Yeah.
not a perimenopause or menopause symptom. Now we know that it absolutely is. We've got the list of the 103 symptoms, and I go into the symptoms in the book because I want women to understand that if they're experiencing body odor in one or both armpits, primarily in the left armpit, a lot of women are like, it's in my left, or you're having phantom smells. You're smelling things that other people don't. We know that burning smells are the number one symptom, the number one smell that women in perimenopause and menopause are smelling. These are all things that I love data. The more data, the better. So these are all surveys that I have on. I'm like, we can help you. So that's why, to me, it's important that they understand what the symptoms are. And then we have 3 chapters on nutrition. How are we eating? What do we like? Ways. And I always say, what worked for us before perimenopause and menopause doesn't necessarily work for us anymore, especially with nutrition, especially with mindset, especially with, pretty much everything. Sleep,
Mhm.
right? Everything that we do, managing stress. So how do we help ourselves? And the starting place for me as a nutritionist for more than 20 years is nutrition, because we can't out supplement poor nutrition, right? So understanding the basics, how to eat, how to help ourselves eat in a way that we know that will benefit us and help us to thrive in this phase of life. That was important for me, and it's all covered in the book. And we cover everything from sleep to managing stress to why we gain weight in perimenopause and menopause. Many of us are gaining weight. There are 17 different reasons we gain weight. Most of it that's out of our control. So just explaining to women what is happening for me was really important.
And I can see why it's 400 pages.
It's literally 400 pages. It's so long, I know, but and I wrote it with Lisa Tsakos, who's been a nutritionist for more than 20 years, who's brilliant. She's incredible. The two of us, both nutritionists, it was very important for us that we provided information that we've learned for so many years. And now it's in one place that you can go and you can, absorb, read it as, a little bit at a time. You can read it all at once, like whatever you want. It's kind of there for you as a resource.
I think it's something that's going to be pretty darn awesome. And I am really proud of you, Andrea, because number one, I know the work that you have done since I've known you, and it's just been outstanding. And I really want you to be recognized for this book because it just recognizes you for everything that you have done in this menopause world, supplements, things like that, nutrition has been outstanding. And I just want everybody on here and all of our listeners to spread the word. And I want everyone to get out there and get this book. And you know what? You know how we talk about supporting women? This is the
Yeah.
way you can support a woman. Go and send the book to your friend, to your mother, to
Yeah.
whoever it is out there. I want you to share this book. She's a Canadian author. We've seen a lot of U.S. authors when it comes to menopause. Let's support Canada.
Oh, and thank you for the kind
Yeah.
words. And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to have been on here. So thank you.
I
Thank
was
you.
really just going
Looking
to kind of
forward.
say the same thing. It sounds like it's going to be the Bible, the next menopause Bible for us to sit back and take our notes and go over and over and have it be a resource to come back to as new things come up in our minds. We go, oh my God, I read that in Andrea's book and now it's happening to me. Now I've got to go share this with somebody else. So Deb is absolutely right. Share this with everybody that you can find. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate everything that you have to say and your knowledge on all of this. I can't wait to get my hands on the book myself. I'm really excited about that. And thank you to Kara for being our new co-host. So amazing episode for you to be on and have a part in the joy today. Today's episode is brought to you by the Pleasure Pods, an all-natural, body-loving lubricant and moisturizer that supports confidence, comfort, and pleasure at every age. Stay connected, stay empowered, and stay beautifully unmuted. You can follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Unmuted Midlife Podcast.